Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey, everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. It is February 12th. I hope you have a happy Valentine's Day or whatever. I would rather see My Bloody Valentine than any romantic comedy ever. I'm sure you guys are like that. A special guest today that I think I've emailed her or texted her, hey, can you come on the podcast? Can you come on the podcast? It finally happened. She is another person that kindly put up with my messy life where I'm in and out. Her website is ancientwoodswitch.com. My friend Jessica Van Waardenburg. Was I even close?
No, you did yes, you did a great job. That was excellent.
Awesome. Oh, and also before we forget, what is the name of your podcast?
Oh yeah, I do a podcast with my husband and it's called Magic Cool Podcasts. And we just have guests on and sometimes we just talk to each other and we just want to talk with other kind of magical people.
Yes. And obviously, as you can tell from her title, Jessica is a witch, and we have some wonderful things to talk about that. We got 3 things to hit here. And the third one is she has a mentoring class you're going to want to hear about because it sounds fascinating. And she told me a little bit about it beforehand. And I think, well, we'll wait till we get to that. So first of all, it is February 2nd, and we were taping this on January 10th. Is it the 9th, the 10th?
9th, yeah.
The 9th, okay. So being in Portland, okay, has Portland just been on fire or protests or I think you're outside Portland. Has it just been insane all the way through? What's happening there?
Well, I think that if you watch the news, you have a really different idea of what's happening in Portland. I live in Eugene, but I lived in Portland for a really long time and all of my family lives up there on my husband's side. And so we travel there. My job is there. And I think that my side of the family lives in Pennsylvania and they were catching the news and constantly calling me and really worried about me because it appears on the news that the city is like, I keep hearing those words dumpster fire and I'm just so sick of it. So downtown, tons of graffiti. There are still people that protest every day. And some of the protests were so violent but the city itself is not on fire and many people live there and love it. And it's not presented in a way that is true.
Yes. And, and not to make, this is going to sound like I'm making a joke, but I'm not. But downtown, you mean where Harvey's is and where Voodoo Donuts is, which is great vegan donuts. That area downtown, that sort of fun old townish way?
Well, not as far as Old Town, but it is like a little bit over. It's near Old Town, but it doesn't even touch into Old Town most of the time. I mean, they did start protesting in other locations, but those locations aren't covered in graffiti. They were just going to different police precincts to protest there. But it's not like they're going across the river and setting the whole part of town on fire. It's not like that.
Okay, so
it's the courthouse and the surrounding few blocks around the courthouse that are the real, have lots of graffiti. And they still have people that have been protesting the entire time.
And this is the Black Lives Matter protest, or what is the protest, or where did it originate and what did it turn into?
Well, I think definitely it started like with Black Lives Matter. Back in, gosh.
I know,
was that
it
June?
might as well have been last year. It was last year. We're in 2021. Yeah. But it feels like decades ago. That's how many things have happened. It feels like decades ago.
It does. It feels like a really long time ago. And I still think that people are putting it in the news as look what happened in Portland. Look what happened in Seattle as some way to justify brutality against other people, against people.
Well, yes, it's a very weird. So we're, like I said, everyone keep in mind, because I believe we're about to, these 3 weeks before Trump is ousted, if he's ousted, is going to be insane. And they do use Portland as that. Like it's not already insane, like people crawling up the walls of the Capitol, which, by the way, just is like, I know that we did the podcast, we knew it was happening, but it was so weird, that part. Like it did look like World War Z. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah. If you watch, I mean, it definitely depends. Like if you were watching the news, they're making everything look so chaotic. And I mean like for the entire country. Mm-hmm. And that is really what's fueling the fire of everyone on all sides, because everyone is really afraid. People protesting downtown and protesting Black Lives Matter, they're afraid because they have been marginalized and want an end to the way things were. And now we keep having, so they're afraid, right? And I'm not judging if you should be afraid or not. That's silly. There's no judgment on that. But then they have other people that are now afraid because nebulous idea of Antifa, which is anyone. I mean, I know a lot of people who would be, I mean, like somebody just say, oh yeah, that's Antifa. Yep. But what they are is people that are involved in mutual aid networks. What they are is people that are going out helping the homeless, making them food. And I don't understand how that is, those two things are so, it became so difficult, and it's being used as a scapegoat for fear. Mm-hmm. So every side has all this fear. Sorry.
Well, that's okay. The whole thing, first of all, this is where I go down the conspiracy rabbit hole and I have to pull myself out. But this is how conspiracies start. You start with a piece of information that is either true or remotely true, and then you tag it. Because I go all the way back to be like, first of all, I say this over and over. Antifa is not an organized group, which is why the FBI doesn't have them on their list. I could have a group of 4 Antifas, 4 people that are Antifa in my house. That is not a group. We don't have a central organization, whereas these other things do. And QAnon and Proud Boys and all those things, they are organizations that have agendas and what are those called? Manifestos, which, by the way, I had a manifesto once. Don't make it in glitter. No one will take it seriously. But Antifa is just people that are against something. So there's this, that's like saying, I don't know. It's amazing to me how fast, when that dissent started on the Capitol, the people blamed it on Antifa, which obviously means that was part of the plan, was to call it Antifa. The minute it goes, take it off of our back, put it on Antifa, which I don't even know. That makes me wonder, did they even start Antifa so that they always had the scapegoat? Like it's,
well, they started the word conspiracy, right?
Yeah. Yes.
And that's what made it so that no one can take anything seriously. So if you go sit down with your family and they say something and you say to them, yeah, but do you remember that actually did happen? You know, they now admit it, and they're like, yeah, but it's different. But it's not different. And so I think that is very likely true what you're saying, because that word, I mean, they have taken words and then moved them around. I think you're so right about it.
Yeah. And it's, that's the other thing I do remember on the Daily Show, them blaming Barack Obama for 9/11 when he wasn't president when 9/11 happened. And there was clearly these people with their flag that was like, he caused 9/11. It was like he was a community organizer, or he was, I don't even know if he was a senator at that time. So there's this rewriting of history that's crazy. But it's good to hear, because I believe, and I finally started watching all the news channels and looking on internet, but it's Fox News that constantly points to Portland, right?
Yes, the people on my side of the family that were really concerned about me are definitely people that are more conservative. So if I would assume that's what channel, I will be honest that I cannot consume any news channels. It is kind of like, because I'll see it, right? When I look on the internet and I'll look up an article and I'm trying to figure out what's going on. And it's so obvious by the headline that they are attempting to force you to have some sort of like outrage, like visceral bodily reaction. I mean, you see all these TikToks of people losing their fucking minds.
Yeah.
And that's what they want. I mean, I feel like this is all by design. I think that it would be really smart of us when we can to be able to take a breath and see it for what it is. It's a manipulation of groups of people to a certain end. What that end is, we don't know. But what we can see is now we know that this is a move. Now let's look in the next month, in February, what that step was. What did they want to accomplish that we now had to make more enemies, more fear? Now, guys, you can't protest anymore because did you see what happened in the Capitol? Or, hey guys, do you see how bad free speech is? It's really getting people to do bad things. Like maybe we should start constantly surveilling everything everybody says because we don't want this to happen again.
Right. Like the, what was that? The Patriot Act. Oddly enough, named the Patriot Act.
Yeah. And if you do it right, then not everybody, but so many people are like, yeah, that's a good decision.
Well, you know what else is interesting is we are there. We are there. They just showed what happens when you put that much rage into people. And it's hard to say our side, their side. But, well, no, actually, it's pretty easy, especially when you look at the Proud Boys. That's their side. But when you put that much rage into a group and then you fuel it with the conspiracy, that's what we have. We have that, because I think because I'm in the paranormal, I don't worry talking bad or good about the dead. It doesn't freak me out.
Yeah, me either.
That woman that got killed trespassing in a place she was attacking them. And when you see the videos of her screaming at Kamala Harris, you're like, who saw I'm with you on this. Who saw the end? What was the end? Was the end that Trump walks in and takes over? I don't know what the end was. That's what
we're going to see next month. Cause that's what I think. I see, there's going to be, if you follow astrology, there's going to be some changes in the sky clock or whatever you want to call it in February. And we're going to see like some rules are coming. And what are they? And that's what it is that was behind it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I don't really think that there is this thing like of Republicans versus Democrats at upper levels of society. Yeah. It's only, there for us to like fear the other and hate, something to focus our negative energies on.
Right. Like I said, I think we can say safely we're not with the Proud Boys. That's safe enough. That's a Nazi
absolutely
group. Which I'm not even going to go into how terrifying that was and what the clothes they were wearing, because that is where the Republican Party people should step back and go, wait a minute, we don't want this, but they're not. But anyways, we'll know what's coming, and we'll also know the best case scenario, I think, would be if everybody just didn't pay attention to that. It's amazing.
Yes, look away.
Twitter and Facebook have been given so much power. And then this is where I get torn, because they shut the president down. My friend says this all the time, and I agree with him. Do you want Mark Zuckerberg in charge of what you see or don't see? And the answer to that is no. Obviously you're right, because they're setting us up to say nothing. But it's almost, here it is. We are the product of a completely unengaged public.
We're very easily manipulated. And I'm not saying this in some sort of judgmental way, like this group is manipulated or they're this.
No, I've been manipulated. I watch.
Yeah, we're all getting manipulated. Everything is meant to cause us distraction, and we forget to slow down and have some discernment. Does this sound true? Is this only here to generate some anger on my part? Because the thing is, there are a lot of things that we could do about the things that we care about, and if we don't, but like being like outraged all the time is not good for us.
Right. It's not even good for it's not good personally or generally that's what, and I'll say this last thing and then we'll actually move on. But this is actually the perfect reason why people need to take your class.
100%. 100%.
Weird. But also, I think, and this is the thing, I never see a bad outcome. Like I can tell you all the scary things I think are going to happen, but I am always assured somehow in my heart that the best wins out. This is just going to take us. This is how we chose to adjust. I'll never forget someone saying, the United States has to come down. We could have chosen it to be like a cancer with Hillary Clinton or a heart attack with Trump. And we chose the heart attack. And what we're going through now is just how we get rid of corruption. And it's going to be ugly and it's going to be messy. But the other day I stopped and I was like, you've never thought about the wrong outcome. Like what it would be like if, whatever the Proud Boys want. That's very true. I really think this is the turnover that's going to take us slowly. Not going to happen just yet, but it's going to take us to a better place. So sometimes I think I talk to friends or somebody was sometimes making comments about me jumping on negative timelines. I don't think they're negative. I think they're the process.
Well, it's kind of like, if you buckle your seatbelt, then you think that you're going to get in a car accident. And you're like, well, I'm not really hoping to get in a car accident. I'm just trying to prepare myself for inevitability of I am not in control of the universe.
Yes,
the universe is going to flow around us. And I think that you're so right. Things are changing, and change is really scary. That's why everyone is so scared. And it's totally valid to be afraid, but what we do with it and how we move that through us is up to us. And so I definitely think things are going to, I don't think it's going to be fast, honestly, but things are going to change. And I think that it makes sense that people are struggling with that.
Yeah. And somebody said on my New Year's podcast, they said normal's been canceled. And I love that. But here's what people need to do. Here, I'm getting all on my soapbox. You don't need to think about getting back to normal. You get to think about how things, when they change, could get better. That's what you get to think about. What was, all the things you thought you'd change or the better system? Start going that way. Everybody wants to go back. I don't want to go back. I want to be able to dine out with my friends without wearing a mask. But let's think about the changes that could be great. Whatever that is. For me, I would say healthcare for all. That would be great, or whatever. So this is the process. But the fear when you say normal is canceled, and I'm like, good, we were not doing well with normal. We were not doing well with normal. That's why we're here. But always see the good changes that are coming, beginning with, I'm so happy to hear that Portland is not what they're reporting.
I know for a fact that there are people that have suffered in Portland, in the downtown area, because it's harder for the businesses there. But I do not think that for the greater, my family is there.
And they're making it look like Armageddon.
Yeah. I remember one time there was a journalist on another podcast, and he was talking about, and this was a really big podcast, and he was talking about how he walked out of his apartment and there were fires and garbage cans everywhere. And he made it sound like Portland is some like terrorist city full of terrorism. And people heard that and they listened, and it's like, yeah. I've lived there for such a long time, and I know so most of my circle is there, and we're all living. We're all, it's life, and we're moving around just like everybody else. The city is not on fire. I mean, it's suffering, just like every city in the United States is suffering, but it's not suffering because of Antifa or Black Lives Matter. I mean, it's not, we can't put it on that.
And then when we come back, I have something really good to tell you about Portland or about Oregon that y'all might not have known. So we will be right back. Hey, everybody, you know I only bring you the best in readers and healers, and that's why I'm here to talk about Paul Jasek. Paul was the guy you all went nuts for on the New Year's prediction show, as you should. He was fantastic. He's one of my favorite people, and not only is he a reader, he's also an entertainer. So when you book with him, you know you're in for some fun as well. He's not only accurate, he's one of the most compassionate human beings I've ever met, which means he can tell you how it is without scarring you for life. We all know those readers that blurt stuff out or try to work out their own shadow side on us. That's not Paul. Paul is going to give you the information you need and have you walking away inspired. That's Paul Jasek. You can book with him at www.paul.jasek.com. Okay, so correct me if I'm wrong, but my fabulous, I'm a freak about Dr. Bonner's soap and the story that goes with it, which if you don't know, folks, go get a Dr. Bonner's soap. It's the best thing you could get, and read or go watch the documentary on who he was. He was this hippie trying to bring world peace, and his agenda is on the back of the soap, just at some point giving away so much soap to the homeless and to whatever, that at some point his sons were even like, they wondered if they were going to go under. But it is such good stuff and such good people. And it's I think his son said, because the guy kept saying, his sons and grandsons took it over, and he was always trying to put more peace and love and information, that at one point they had to say, hey, listen, the words are getting too small. No one can read the label because you're putting in all this agenda. And he said at one point, we wondered if we were selling soap with a label on it or a label with soap in it. And the son came out and said I think he's the cosmic executive manager. He gave himself a title. No, the cosmic... I can't remember what it was, but I was like, how is he not my husband? That he has made a title, Cosmic Vice President. And I was like, how is that not my husband with Cosmic in his work title? And he went to work at making mushrooms legal for therapy in Oregon. Did that pass?
Yes, it did. Also, just as a side note, for Dr. Bronner's, that soap is so great because you can go to your local co-op and refill your own container and not have to put plastic and waste out there. So that is something that we all can do to help ourselves.
Yes, and it's the soap. It's the soap of Armageddon. Since we're on that, you can use it on your hair. You can use it on your body. You can use it in your house. It's just amazing.
You can brush your teeth with it.
You can brush your teeth with it. It's the greatest product ever. They have parades where he puts a shower on a truck, and anybody on the homeless people can. They're just amazing. So that's something. All right. So now let's talk about, before we get to your class. You were telling me. Well, tell me first of all what the class prepares you for, and then you started to talk about journey work, and that's what I wanted to hit. So when people take your class, just give us a brief. We're really going to hit this in the last half, but give me a brief view of what this class gets them ready for.
This class is it's a foundational class for ritual. So anything that you want to do that is working with energy, this is going to be a really good thing. So if you decide you want to be a high priestess and some form of magic, you need to have a really good foundation of being able to sit with yourself and feel energy. If you want to do Reiki work, this is a great way to prepare yourself for that kind of work. So what it is, it's a funnel that just gives some foundational tools to move you into what it is that you're interested in doing, because there's so many paths out there.
And it's a great, for everybody that says they can't meditate, this is the beginning. For everybody that says, I want to do this, I want to do this. And you said it's sort of like a great way to prepare people for journeying, right?
Yes, I love journey work, or, you could call it flying if you're for witches. Like you can get flying ointment, things that help you do journey work. Meditation.
I have never heard of that. Wait, when you say flying, are we talking mushrooms or pot or anything like that, or just astral projection? What does that mean?
I don't use mushrooms or anything like that. Okay. I just have a meditation practice, a ritual practice that I sit down and I do every day that I can. I'm not a robot. Some days I can't make it. Some days I don't feel good. But most of the time I do, because it improves all aspects of my life. Mm-hmm. But I have found that I can see things in my meditations and journey. So if it's a flying ointment, it's to help you fly in that ether, in the astral dimension, in another place. So when I'm talking about journey work, you're journeying through other realms, dimensions, places, not your, you can feel your spirit going to places.
So it's not, I know from my own meditation, I'm trying to find words here because I know what you're talking about. When I get, it's interesting. My therapist hooks up these things to my head and I don't know what she does, but she hooks these things up to my head and she plays music. I listen to music on headphones. And when the brain goes she says when the brain goes the way it shouldn't, so it measures my brain waves. And when the brain waves go off, there's a little click in the music. And I don't know if they're like the brain is going into trauma and it pulls it back, but it puts me in this state of flying that you're talking about. So when you journey, like you're seeing UFOs, you're seeing like just your guides, give me a description of what you visually see.
I guess it just depends on what we're journeying for. I mean, I've had several journeys where I was asking for nothing and extremely psychedelic experiences have occurred. So much that at the beginning of so another thing I just want to mention, I think that there are people who are always awake to the universe. They're born that way. There are people that have near-death experiences, and then they come back and have these experiences where they can interact with the universe. And I don't know why, but it definitely, absolutely happens to women in when they hit 40, or around that age. That you wake up and you're like, holy shit, I'm an ancient woods witch. The world looks different. And now I can go and do journeys. And I had to get help, not help. I had to double check, is this normal for meditation? Right? Because everybody has different senses, right? There's clairsentience and clairvoyance and clairaudience. And so it looks different for everybody. And it's really important to talk with other people when you do it, in case you have questions, because people will do journey work or meditation or prayer and see things or hear things, but they don't have that trust in themselves to actually listen. And sometimes I'm really visual, so I can see things. But sometimes people are hearing things or feeling things in their body. And so that's kind of what I'm talking about.
And another thing,
spirits and stuff like that.
And another thing, somebody, I know this sounds weird, but you could just feel your body. You could just, I know that's a weird way to say it, but it's I don't realize how much tension and stress I'm carrying in my back until it's gone. And then I go, oh, so in these journeys, they might actually be feeling things in their body for the first time.
Yes. And it is transformative in your life. You can so it works in all kinds of ways, right? Guided meditation, prayer, drumming. I sometimes use frog sounds like spring peepers because that for me is really the rhythm of it. So it's nice to have some sort of rhythmic sound or drumming, because if you're not sure what you're doing and you're starting to fight yourself, you go back to that sound and then it kind of redirects you where you want to go.
So you
And
associate that sound with like the place you want to go, and then as you drift, you tune into that sound. That's brilliant.
yeah, because it keeps you from focusing on negative thoughts. You're like, wait, no, I can think about that later. Just calm down, listen to the drumming. I'm here to meet a helpful spirit. You know, you can go to the underworld and meet your spirit animal. You could go to the underworld and commune with like the wild woman. All these different things can really change your life when you're feeling them and seeing them and opening yourself up to that.
You know what is funny is I think it was Gloria Steinem. Someone can correct me on this. And they said so they said there's a place where every woman, every time there's been something sexist against her or there's been mansplaining, it all goes in this little file cabinet, and then right around 40 that file cabinet bursts open. Like, what the hell is going on? And it sounds like it kind of is almost along this line of power, where you find your power and you almost find where you lost your power.
And it is, no one told me. I was not prepared. I have not been worried about my age. Like, I enjoy aging. I actually like my life as I get older, it improves and I really love it. So turning 40 was not a big deal to me, but I didn't realize that there would be an on switch somewhere
Right.
that would change the way I see things. So, I mean, I can channel now. I can, and I didn't even know what that stuff was when it started to happen to me. And so, meditation has really helped, and having a mentor and those aspects and different aspects of your study is so important.
Also, it's an interesting, because I'm 55, and whenever I heard women talk about how it was great when they hit 50, I didn't believe them, but I can't tell you how great it is. In fact, I'm writing a comedy bit now about how nobody ever wanted to go out with young Rontowski, 55-year-old Rontowski. I don't know what happened, but it's going, it's like I saved all my beautiful boyfriends up for this. Something shifted. I also, and this is just a biological theory, but it's almost like when your hormones calm down, your life calms down. Like people, I love menopause.
I've never thought this until we were just sitting here. I was like, and it's for the first time in a lot of women's lives where you start getting to think about yourself. Your career has been always taking the front seat, or your husband or your kids or this or that, and something switches and you're like, oh, what is it that I give a shit about? What am I about? And I think that has something to do with it too.
Yeah. And not to knock the men out of this conversation, because I know you guys men are having wake up things also. I mean, and sometimes, the joke is that it's a midlife crisis, but it's an awakening. And you know what? It's kind of weird, because the midlife crisis joke would be that they get a car or a younger girl or something. But you know what? All that is stereotypical, not always happening. And also that's sort of waking up like, hey, this is life. I get to have a nice car. I get to, pursue, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of a good thing. It's not good and that's the old stereotype that they've left the wife and kids, and I don't really see that anymore or that much, but it's kind of what happens to women. Like, I get to be me. I get to do this.
Yeah, like, it's my turn. And the funny thing is, and I don't mean to say anybody begrudged me my turn. That is absolutely not true. I will tell you that 100% I begrudged my own turn. I was the one that kept me from focusing on me, because I had to help everybody and focus on them. And that's it's a part of who I am. And I didn't learn how to have boundaries or take care of myself until I decided that I was worth having boundaries and taking care of myself. And it did take me a little bit longer. And I don't know. I think being 40 and then just being fine in my skin and liking who I am, and some energetic thing happens. Astrologers say that there's something really big about that 41, 42 age that people go through something.
And another thing with that, oh, there's a dog barking. Sorry, folks. Another thing that's interesting that I actually sort of almost want to relate this to what's going on in the country and this the overthrow of everything. The one thing COVID was like, I think COVID was like, remember when you didn't have enough time? Now you got enough time. You know what I mean? Remember when you didn't get to see your parents? Well, now like there's a gratitude that's coming through this. Like when we get to the other side, I am so grateful every day. And some of like this waking up and just I lost my place. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Oh, that's okay. I think I am so grateful every day too. Right. And I will tell you that at the beginning of this, people would, oh, well, you have all this time. You should be doing this. And that's what it sounded like in my head. Yes. You should do this. But you don't have to hear it that way. I was choosing to hear it that way because I was so stressed out that I wasn't taking my own medicine. I wasn't doing what I needed to do to take care of myself. And then when I started taking care of myself and putting myself as an important part of like, hey, you need to take time for yourself too. Yeah, the kids need you and work needs you or this or that. So that changed. That voice doesn't sound so bitchy now. It sounds more like, hey, remember how you wanted to read this book? You can do that. Okay.
Yes. And also, and I know where I was going with this. This is neither female or male. There is such a persistent need to be perfect that it comes from the outside and then it goes on the inside. But this need to be perfect or this need to be
to appear perfect.
Or I need to be working all the time. And I'm terrible about that, but at least I have two jobs that I love that I would be doing, you know what I mean, if they were mine. Mm-hmm. But there is this pressure, and that's what I hope the other side of this does away with. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to go back to being farmers where the whole day was about what are we making so we can eat. But there's something peaceful about that time that, it would be really cool to eat our own food that we grew and not be preservative. It just is, I think it's so moving in the right direction in a bizarre way. So
I think that I would just like to say that I think that has a lot to do with judgment. Because we're afraid of other people judging us and we see what's going down. And that's, it feels to me that we're all afraid of judgment. And so I have been on a personal mission to try to be less judgmental of others and be more empathetic to, like, people are afraid and just not to have, I don't have to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah. Or, yeah, I agree with that. And I also agree with when someone asks something. Like, if you were to ask me about tarot, that would be great. But if you were asking me about witchcraft, I would kind of be like, yeah, I don't really know that much about it. Like, don't be afraid to go, I don't really know. That's not my topic. This is my topic.
Yes. Like, I don't put my energy there. I'm sorry. I have this other thing I could talk about. And sometimes it is just where we put our focus helps a lot. Not sometimes, but a lot. It does help.
Yeah. And so before we break to go the second half, what is Journey Oil?
Oh, well, I know I have some. So the flying, I don't have any. I only know witches that use it. So I have a mentor and her name is Sarah Goff and she is a shamanic healer. And so I was exposed to journey work through her. And then I met a bunch of witches that have been practicing for a long time and they have flying ointment. And it's very similar to journey work, but witches just do it a little bit differently, but you're really going to, you can go to similar places.
So it's not an oil that you put on your skin?
This flying ointment is an oil that you put on your skin and you can get it off Etsy from different reputable like witches. And it has herbs in it. Coconut oil is the kind I like. And it has different herbs like mugwort. And some of them have like amanita, mascara, like different things like that. And you put them on your third eye or rub them into your feet and help do the journey that way.
Okay. Amy Spicer told me about skate oil. Maybe it's a similar. Is it?
Yes, it sounds, yeah.
Okay.
And so it just depends on what group of people are doing it. But I know some witches that sell it called flying oil. So you can look it up that way.
Wonderful. All right, we're going to take a break, folks, and we're going to come back and talk about Jessica's class. Woo! Okay. All right, folks. So Jessica, the class is called...
It's called the Keystone Course, and I kind of am categorizing it as a mini mentorship. I called it the Keystone Course because I'm kind of a research nerd. I went to school for public health, and I like public health promotion and how to put out messages and stuff. And there's this idea of the keystone habits, and what it is it's a small habit that can be added into your life that like all of the good parts of it kind of carry over into other aspects of your life. And so this course is building things like that. So it's building, you could call it a meditation practice, you could call it a ritual practice, or you could call it a prayer practice, because they all have really similar qualities. And those are the things that I'm going to be going over with. And then I have one-on-ones with it's a small group of people, with my people. And then we talk about what they're having specific problems with, where they're getting caught. Did something come up on a journey that was upsetting for them? One time I went to a journey group, and it was a group with a bunch of people I didn't know. And it was a drumming circle journey group. And I had a very difficult emotional journey back to a place that I didn't want to return to. I had been in like a super abusive relationship when I was in my early 20s. And I ended up going back to this place, and I was in the like hallway of this house, and all this stuff came up. And I had to call my personal mentor to help me through that, because after the journey was done, no one else had. We're sitting in this group and they're like, who wants to talk about their experience? And someone's like, I went to Mars and talked to him because it was Mars season, and all this other stuff. And it sounded like so fascinating and fun. And I was traumatized in the corner.
Wow.
So I think that when you start doing this work, it's really nice to be able to have somebody to hold your hand in that way, but not somebody that's going to hold you accountable in a kind and loving way. And so that is what I'm trying to bring to the table in my small groups, because as you go through this, stuff comes up.
Right. So when you say journeying, so it sounds so much deeper to me than just that type. You know what I mean?
Yes. So I do a journey group once a month. It's $3 if anybody ever wants to come. And what I do is I have a ritual where I prepare my space. We even build a shed outside of my house where we do podcasts, and I do my spirit sessions and all my work with other people's spirits. And so I prepare my space ritually with rocks and prayer and Reiki symbols, because I am a Reiki practitioner, and I get it ready. And then I have been praying about what we're going to journey on. And then I start the group by saying, hey, right now, I did an elemental series recently. We're going to journey to fire. And so you lay down, you get somewhere really comfortable, and either I drum, or we could listen to drums or other things, like I mentioned, frogs. And then you just listen to the drumming and open yourself up to seeing what comes to you. And that is all it is opening yourself up to the opportunity to receive something in a safe space.
So and also explain to me, drumming, is it just the vibration that opens people up, or because somebody might be listening and being like, what, I'm just listening to a drum solo?
Yeah, I don't always do drums. Sometimes we just do guided meditations too. Mm-hmm. So we're using visualization techniques to get somewhere, but I like drumming. There's a book and a school by this guy named Michael Harner, who was an an anthropologist, I believe, and he studied shamanism all over. And I also work with a shamanic healer, and the drumming part, it's called sonic driving. So it has to be a certain, I cannot remember the beats per minute. But anybody that wants can look it up. I can't remember the exact beats per minute. It is bringing you back. It's driving you forward in your journey. So it is a really good tool for people who are learning how to go somewhere in meditation, because you fight yourself a whole bunch in meditation. Like, should I be thinking nothing? Oh, now I'm thinking things. How do I get this thought out of my head? So instead of going somewhere, you're fighting with yourself. And whenever there is that sonic driver, you can go back to that sound. And so they did some research on it and found the best beats per minute. And I don't know what it is. I just do it because I've been doing it for a while. So
I have some drumming meditation music that I actually very much like. And so it's not, well, binary beats does something totally different, but drumming just sort of keeps you moving forward. Okay. So when you had this bad trip, or bad journey, which bad is a judgment word, so I don't mean that, but when you had a one that wasn't all sunflowers and rainbows, is it seeing part of yourself? Is it seeing other things around you? What does that mean?
Well, I had a really horrible experience living in this home, and it was a really abusive relationship. And I actually left one day. My friend came to pick me up and said, "You cannot stay here anymore." And we left with a suitcase, or whatever I could fit in her car. Mm-hmm. And I left a part of myself there. And I have not had, so it's called soul retrieval. I had to work with somebody to retrieve a part of my soul that fractured off when I was traumatized.
Wow. And that was hard work, good work? It felt funny? Is that what it was about?
Super hard, super emotional. Pain came back to me that I didn't know existed. And I had to learn how to move with that. And it was one of the best things that could have ever happened to me, because I want all of my energy that is mine, that I came here with. I don't want to fracture myself. I want to be able to address some traumas that I have had in my life. It was super painful, but I'm on the other side of that. And I'm really grateful for that experience. And it's one of the experiences that makes me think that journey work and meditation are so important, because I wouldn't be who I am now if I hadn't done that. And I like who I am now.
Now, did you, when you say fractured yourself, I just had an interesting conversation with somebody about this. Explain how the personality fractures, or the soul fractures, whichever one you want to call.
In my experience, it is caused by extreme trauma, and not being able to emotionally process what was going on, and feeling like my life was in danger. And so I was a different person in that experience.
When you're talking about when the fracture happens, you're undergoing extreme trauma, and probably to a smaller level, just some trauma, just being, certain things like that. And so that part of you splits from your soul, or just becomes its own entity. What kind of happens there?
I felt like it felt as if I left a part of myself there. And it was a part of me I needed protected from that. So it felt to me as a part of myself was left there. And so I became a more confident person after I did this. It kind of took away I had some negative conditioning from that when I went to retrieve that part, that I was able to let go of, that I was able to see that was actually negative conditioning. I wasn't even aware that I was operating in the world in that way. So I think I call it like a fracture, being I didn't have all of my ability to care for myself or to see how I what these things did. So, and I worked with somebody to do the spirit, like the soul retrieval. And that's how it is that I see it. I see it as something that's on an energetic level. I left part of me there. Does that make sense?
It does kind of. I think it's something, I do think it's one of those things you have to experience to know. I know I watched, I always kind of like Teal Swan. She did like an hour on it. And I think you have to kind of put it together in your own way. Do you know what
Yeah, absolutely. I remember when I first started doing meditation, and my mentor was like, I want you to do it in silence for a while until you know how to sit with yourself. And she said, how are you going to feel energies moving around the room if you can't even feel your own energies and you can't sit in silence? And I remember not understanding exactly what that meant. I thought it was great, and I didn't fully understand it until I could start really feeling that energy move around my body. And you've felt other entities and energies around you, and it helps for that. And so I think it's one of those many, many things in manifestation, intention, magic, all of these realms, all these esoteric realms. People can tell you what it is and you can hear it, but until you experience some of it, it doesn't mean the same.
Well, that's like even that's a great statement that you just made about how you have to feel in your own body before you feel it elsewhere, because that is when you sit quiet long enough. Like I live in LA next to a busy street, so quiet is a little bit relative. But yes, I know what you mean. And then suddenly you are aware. It's almost a really way of just being in your body and grounding, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Some people have a really hard time with the word grounding, but I definitely have a bunch of techniques for grounding. And it's fun because if a meditation doesn't work for you, we can ask your guides. You can ask your guides what meditation would, and then you can make one for yourself to do a grounding exercise to feel really connected. And Reiki really helps with that so much.
And yes. And lastly, I know this is weird, but tell me something about your elemental class. And I know it's already done, but that's a fascinating topic for me.
I'm going to start it after this group. I'm going to do a group in February and a group starting in March. And then when the February group is done, I'm going to offer my elemental course again. And so I'm going to be honest. This is how I was taught by guides how to call in elements. So it's not something that I learned from other people, but I am a huge research nerd. It's what I do for a living. And I did a lot of research about everything, and I created rituals to call elements into my life. So an example, I work with fire for a month, and I have a whole ritual to connect with fire and feel the spirit of fire. Mm-hmm. I call them my sisters. They're like female spirit entities to me, and you can call on them. And, you get different things in your life from different elements. Like air right now really helps clear our energy, and it helps us see what's true. And water helps us with our feelings. And so we can call on those elements when we need them, once we learn them, or not learn them, but once we connect with them, once you feel a connection. And like, there's all kinds of ways you can call elements or spirits once you connect with them.
So I'm feeling overly emotional, so I want to call in the element of water or fire.
If you're feeling overly emotional, you want to call in air, because air is going to help you clear some of that emotion, like clear some out the muck of all the emotions. What are the things that you want to feel? What is not yours? And what can you take off your shoulders, so to speak, because you don't need to feel this. And then it's easier to sit with your feelings. Also, you would call on the earth, because when you have so many feelings that you need to go through, having somebody to hold you and love you and care for you in that space is really important.
Interesting. So it's not really
I think
elemental?
I see them as people.
Yeah.
I mean, I see them as I see spirits as helpful spirits that you can talk to and they can interact with you. I'm an animist. I think that everything has a spirit. The universe is alive, and we as humans and the stewards of this planet can interact with everything.
I agree with that a lot. And I feel like there's somebody, my friend Derek always says, say I love you to your food, or say I love you to things, and then it puts that on your frequency.
Yeah, I pray over tea for my kids. I have a little sigil that is healthy, patient, and kind, and I put it on everything. And sometimes when I make the tea, I stare at the tea. I'm looking at the tea. I'm focusing on the tea. I'm asking it to impart its beneficence into this water. And then we're going to use it for health and healing. And I spend 5 minutes doing that sometimes. Wow. Mm-hmm. Now everybody gets to hear what I really do.
Yes. Well, you know what, too? When you start something like that, sometimes it may be 5 minutes, sometimes it's 5 seconds, but either way, it's also a reminder of gratitude.
Yes, and gratitude is really important, and it's really important in times of difficulty too. And so a part of speaking about the elemental magic, a really big part of my elemental magic practice is giving gratitude. I don't ask for things often. I just thank whatever that I am able to connect with things in that way. So I give gratitude more than I ask. And I think that's a good lesson for all of us. What can we be thankful for? And then when we do ask for things, who is it helping? Is it helping me? Is it helping my community? And is it helping, the all?
That's interesting, because I don't know. I'm kind of in a spot where I don't have anything to ask for. I don't have anything to ask for right now, because I think it's kind of good. It's a topic came up the other day about having a TV show, and I was like, I think I'm kind of good. Whereas like years ago, that would have been the ultimate goal, and now I'm kind of like, no, I think this is better. I think no bosses and no one yelling at me is better.
Yes. And I just want to put it out there, though, if you do want to ask things for yourself, it's really good to have some connections with spirit.
Yeah.
Because then you know who to ask for, and they can listen to you when you talk to them.
Yeah, and I love that too about everything having spirit. And I think if we looked at the earth like that, we wouldn't have such environmental damage, or our food source would not have gone to preservative crap. I just learned how to make bread, and it's 4 ingredients. And I was like, really? Bread is 4 ingredients? Go look at the bread label in the store. Oh my God, it's 100 ingredients. And it's like, and mine is better. Holy cow.
And that's another thing too, that we do to ourselves, is make everything seem way more complicated than it is. I mean, and that's one of the things that is useful in drumming, because journey work is literally you just laying with yourself and opening yourself up to spirit, but we make it super complicated. And that's how we do everything. I know. I mean, maybe not you, but I am like that.
No, that I think that's the nature. It's very funny about, I think people misinterpret, and I'll use the term spiritual people, which spiritual gets like such a bad rap right now.
It does.
For a million reasons. And it just sort of means, to me, it just means people that have stepped aside from religion, neither good nor bad, just stepped aside and are going a different route. And, it's like, people might say something to me like, oh, you seem like you never get mad. And I'm like, no, that's why I had to become a spiritual person, because I get really mad and I have to figure it out. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely. I'm sorry.
It's the opposite of, it's hard work to try and be a calm, meditative or type person. And it certainly can't hold forever. Do you know what I mean? Like, you gotta
absolutely.
Work at it.
And also everybody needs to keep in mind that we all have, it doesn't matter if you meditate every day, it doesn't make it so that you won't have those moments still. But then that's a part of like learning how to be okay with the fact that you're a person. And sometimes you get one over on yourself, or you get sucked into to some news cycle that you didn't want to get sucked into, and now you're outraged, and what can you do for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
We all get, you don't learn a lesson once and then you learn it forever. You have to sometimes go back and several times.
Yeah, and it's more of a check system, a checks and balances system.
Yes.
That's terrific.
I agree.
Oh my goodness. Okay, darling, before we go, thank you for being on the show. Anything else you want to tell people about the class or when they need to sign up or anything like that? And also, I guess they should just go to your website in case they want the can I say elemental class, the elements class, or any of that. Just everybody go to your website.
Yeah, go. I just want to say thank you, Karen, so much for having me on.
Always.
I really appreciate it. I always love talking to you.
We've been trying to make this work for so long, haven't we?
Yes, I love it. And so I am really grateful that we actually got to hang out. And so if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can look at ancientwoodswitch.com, and I'm on Instagram at ancientwoodswitch. I am not on very often on Instagram. I kind of put some boundaries around my internet use to protect myself. So if just email me is the best way, or I have a link tree though on Instagram, so it's really easy to get to my stuff. Ancientwoodswitch.com, and check out my classes. And they're all really small classes. 10 people is the max I ever want to have at one time, because everybody needs personalized attention. It's on a sliding scale that is just based on how often you want to have one-on-ones. So it is very affordable for everybody, because I think that this is the kind of stuff that everybody needs to have access to, so you can decide what kind of path you want to take.
Yeah. And you know what? You just actually gave me a really good note, because I don't know, people might know this, but when this big thing about yelling women are called Karens started, somebody went after me and used my 8x10 on videos of those. Like I was the intro, you get an email through Facebook and someone goes, "Is this you?" It's embarrassing, and click on it. And I clicked on it. It was me, which makes it even worse. But it was such a hassle, and I almost dropped all social media. I almost closed down everything and was just going to force it over to Facebook or to Instagram, which feels less invasive. I don't know why.
It does.
But I left everything up. But folks, I'm so sorry. It takes me forever to get messages through Facebook, especially. But you can always find me on my website and in Instagram. I just found out we have 3 inboxes. So a whole bunch of you sent me emails that I was just like, oh, now I got 100 emails. So I love your sort of system there of, I'm not on there all the time. I totally agree.
Yeah, it's good to protect ourselves a little bit. And, and here's the thing. I'm not for everybody. And if I'm not for you, I think that's perfectly awesome. But if it sounds like I'm for you, hit me up.
Awesome. All right, John. All right, everybody. So have a happy Valentine's Day. You too, darling. You can have a happy Valentine's Day.
Oh, happy Valentine's Day.
All right, Jessica, thanks for stopping by. Folks, you can, thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media, you can. I think I have an ad for myself up. You can find me at karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com. If you give me some 5-star marks or whatever the heck, that really helps get the podcast out there. Thanks, everybody, and have a great day.